Beautiful. It is Thursday, March 23rd. So excited to be here with you. It's kind of shown two completely different things to talk about today. Um, and I mean, for me, I guess in my head, they're like completely opposite, but maybe they're related. Maybe I'll be shown if they're related or not. Um, the first thing, so yesterday, let me go back. Yesterday, I said I was going to talk a little bit about some simple business foundations that I think we forget about, and so I've been kind of guided to go into some foundational pieces. And then this morning, as I was, opening up the book and getting ready to do that, my book fell off my desk and opened. So funny you should say that, Anne. And opened to this page with this following note, which I don't know how long ago this was written, and it says, "Sometimes we think we have to betray the people in our life that we love or loved in order to create a new story." And I thought that was really interesting because, um, people have placed us, I think, or put us in like boxes or labels, right? And so then if we when we transform, we might no longer fit in that like box or label for people. And there's this unconscious part of ourselves that believes that if we change, then we're betraying, and it's usually our family or like a spouse, like someone really close to us, right? So, and it can be so unconscious, right? So an example would be like for me, the role that I've always played in my life, and I joke about being the rebel because there's a part of me that's a rebel, but truly the role that I played in my family's life was the black sheep, right? So not quite fitting in with the rest of my family. And so it's always been kind of a joke, and not not cruel, like not, but just the joke that my dad used to say to my mom that I was on my own path, right? So he didn't call me the black sheep. It was just like basically I'm on my own path and no one's going to guide me to the path that they think that I should be on. And I remember being 15 years old and saying to my dad, well, yeah, why would you think that you have the right path for me? Like I was very confused at a young age as to why he thought, or my parents thought, that they would know what path I should be on. And they couldn't understand why I couldn't see that they knew the right way for me, which they didn't know the right way for me. Right. And so I guess it's twofold. How often do we do that with our spouses, right? Or even our friends? And how often was that done to us? Right.
Or
Just
even our children.
and even our children, right? Yeah, doing it with our children. So, allowing, the allowance of everyone to beat to their own drum. And that's what my dad used to say, like, you just always beat to your own drum. And I remember, as young, my mom was, she's like, I'm just so worried about you. And my dad said to her, you could give Ranchel an ice cube. And at the end of she could walk through the Sahara Desert. And at the end of it, she'll come out with a truck full of water. Right. And so he just had all of this faith that even though he didn't understand my path, he honored that I was on my own path. Right. And so he, um, you know, let go of trying to guide me on my path. He also, and I think this is important for all of us, and this is difficult for people to understand. So I'm sharing this because, and I shared this a couple of weeks ago, but my dad sobered up, and part of sobering up was for him was his sponsor saying to him, what's most important for you is that you have serenity. So if people in your life don't bring you serenity, then don't be around those people, right? Plain and simple. And so I don't offer my mom and dad a lot of peace or serenity, right? They don't feel that connection, that peaceful connection to me. And so it has been difficult for my parents to be around me because I don't represent that for them. Now, for the longest time, I took it personal. And this summer, that I became completely aware of, well, as a reflector, if their life hasn't been full of peace and serenity, they won't find peace and serenity around me. And they could, I think, possibly now if they spent more time with me. That's right, because of the growth that I've had, but the growth that they've had and the mirroring effect. Um, and I became really comfortable with that. I had always accepted it, but wondered what I was doing wrong, like if I could be a different daughter for them. And then this summer, I realized, or last summer, probably, I realized that I am exactly what they need as a daughter, and to let that go, to let go of I must be doing something wrong. I knew that they loved me, but they certainly I felt like they didn't accept me. But I don't know if they do or not, and I think that's still my own pile of shit. Right? Like that's, there's a sense of me wanting to belong. And yet, when I spend time with my family, as much as I love them, I don't really want to belong to that tribe. I I don't want to think, I don't think like they do. I don't want to think necessarily like they do. Um, so you make these decisions. Now, going back to, as I started to change, I had to think about what roles did I play in my family, and who did I think I was going to disappoint, or what was I most afraid of, right? And so what stories did I need to break through? And so for like my mom and dad, do I need to, or did I feel like they might be discombobulated or stressed if I no longer fit into the black sheep, right? And I think it's all unconscious, and I don't necessarily know if it's important that you have to know this, what the story is, right? But there's bits and pieces that came to me as I was starting to, like, okay, I've got to, in order for me to break free, I'm going to need to break free from all of the labels that other people put on me, right? And do I have any fear around that? So it's just this, again, this awareness of, right, this is the story that I'm going to need to break free from. So things like, Roundshell's a great starter, but she's not a great finisher. Right? I grew up with that, right? That I could start many things and I didn't finish anything. And again, what I came to realize through this process, this work that I'm sharing with you, is that I don't finish things like my mom and dad, or like my mom in particular. Like, she starts a project and she finishes a project, right? And not a big project like sewing a quilt or anything like that, but right, she'll start something. But for her, in her head, she always finishes something. Now, we were teasing my mom last year because, you know, um, she finished a quilt that she started when I was 10, and she finished it last year. So she did finish the project. It just took her like 40 years. And we giggled, right? And all the materials from the 70s. It's hilarious, right? And I love it because all the materials are from the 70s. And so it reminds me, but in her mind, she starts a project and she finishes it. And in her mind, I start a project and I don't finish it. And so I went through most of my life thinking I was a great starter, but not a great finisher. So it prevented me, though, from starting things or taking to trying new things, because if I started it, there was this, wasn't even a desire, a lie, that I had to finish it. Right. And then my dad was like, start whatever you want to, and if you like it, finish it. If you don't, you don't. Right. So I had two individuals that influenced me greatly, and two of those pieces. Then we can add a neurodivergent brain, which is, I am a great finisher. I just finish projects very differently. Right. And so the story that I was holding on to was that I had to please but unknowingly please both parents. Well, how the hell do you please two parents that have a complete opposite view? Right? And then add the neurodivergent brain and add intuition and psychic abilities, like, right? So when I started to let go of, like, what story did they put in? Like, well, Randshell's not good with money. Well, that's not true either, right? Certainly I spend just as fast as often, right? In my past, spent as fast as I made. This is why I often in my 20s had 2 or 3 jobs, because I wasn't willing to sacrifice not having the things. So it was just like, I'll just go get another job. I'll just go get another job. Right. So there's lots of times I had 3 or 4 part-time, a full-time job, and then like a filler-in job, part-time casual job, right? Because I wanted material things, and it was like, making $5 an hour. I think is what I started my job, like, or $3 an hour, I think is what I started at. So those things. So the point being, that point being, what stories, like, right? What stories are you going to need to break through from, and who are you afraid of disappointing? Right? And it will still come up for me, right? When I'm taking a PR course, and I shared this as well, and the woman said something about, you could talk about, coming from a highly dysfunctional family and all of the amazing things that you've accomplished. And I immediately went to, I cannot publicly call my family highly dysfunctional, right? Like, I just immediately went into, like, my mom and dad will be devastated, right? And so, so I'm still concerned, and there's nothing wrong with me being concerned about, I don't want my mom and dad to be hurt. And so, and is it my responsibility for them to own it? And is it my responsibility whether they're hurt or not? Because in my mom and dad's world, my mom and dad will say, people can't make you mad, people can't make you sad, people can't hurt you, Randshell, that's a choice. So, I mean, I certainly could live their, like, slogans, and, like, well, if you're hurt, that's your pile of shit, not mine. But I'm in awareness. I'm in reluctance to use that word, because I don't want my parents to be hurt, and I don't think that my parents are ready to own that, and that's limiting me. Right? That's a limitation that I'm placing a story. I'm caught in my story of, I can't hurt my parents, which is just a bullshit story, because I actually can't hurt my parents. My parents can be hurt by the things that I say, but truly that's their pile of shit and not mine. Right? And I use that with a very strong language on purpose, for us to just, for me to, like, jar myself. But it's like, it is not my responsibility what my mom and dad, or how my mom and dad are affected by what I say. And that is against the grain of how we're raised. Be nice. How many of you heard that? Be nice, right? Don't say anything that upsets the apple cart. So it's really interesting. There's, again, 2 really different messages, right? So my mom and dad saying, you can't hurt anybody, Randshell. No one can make you mad. No one can make you sad, right? All of that. And at the same time being fed, don't rock the boat. Don't say things like that, right? Yeah, be good, right? And be good. Don't rock the boat. So how often are we all fed 2 different messages? That's what creates confusion. Right? Because it's at a subconscious level. So you have 2 unconscious beliefs, right? So one of those would be, if you speak the truth, you're not being good or being nice, right? So the only thing that's nice is a lie, right? It's confusing to our the emotional level at where we were at when we heard that. And we carry that through. Like, I'm 50, whatever, 4 years old, and that's still wired in my brain. So in order for that part to not be wired in my brain, I need to look at that and go, how do I want my brain? How do I want to wire my brain? Right? And what conversations am I willing to have? Right? So a conversation that might need to be had with my mom and dad is saying, hey, I'm taking this new course, and right, it's on public relations, and the point that I'm trying to make is I want to I want to jar people's attention so I can get an interview, so I can talk about the importance of having a 12-step program ish for kids. And so that's not, and they don't have to be children of alcoholics. So that's an okay conversation to have, right? To tell them that I'm utilizing my past. It was like the other day, Jill is my coach, and she said, we talked about something, and I said, yeah, like it's like bodybuilding. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I used to bodybuild. And she goes, you don't have that anywhere. You don't talk about that. And so I was like, well, no. And then I went in my head and went, yeah, but look at me. I don't look like a former bodybuilder. And so then I realized, that was, I have some piles of poo around the shape of my, and I knew that, but it's just that reminder of, oh, look, I have some judgment about my body. And so she said, you totally need to talk about that in appropriate places, Rachel. You can say, as a former bodybuilder, this is what I learned. Which is true. I had many incredible life lessons from being a bodybuilder. One of which was the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Like, I'd heard that lots, but expecting different results. So if I'm wanting to increase the size of my biceps, and the exercise that I'm doing isn't doing that, stop doing the fucking exercise. There's like a million different ways to exercise the bicep. So if you're looking for growth in the bicep and bicep curls aren't working, there are other things to do, right? So, it's kind of one of those, aha moments, like work to failure. There's only growth when you work to actually fail. So in the world of bodybuilding, every time you work out to fail. Like, isn't that a great lesson for business? Every day you want to try something that you're possibly gonna suck at. Right? Like, every day I go into ChatGPT, well, that was an epic fail. And how else can I do this? And so, there's some great opportunities of our past is what I'm sharing. But we have to let go of, who are we going to disappoint? Who are we afraid might, they're going to have to let go of their story. So I think that's really important as you're developing the different parts of your business and moving into the impact and influence that that you're meant to have. So that's the one message. The next message is just business foundational pieces. So I talk lots about business is simple. It's marketing and sales and operations. But I think even at a base level, if I break it down, foundational pieces to ask yourself is who are you serving? Now, another way we've always asked this is, who's your ideal client? But sometimes that feels more strategic. Sometimes you need, the question is, who are you actually serving, or who do you want to serve? And the second question is, how will you serve them? So I serve them through coaching. How will you serve them? Will you serve them through consulting? Will you serve them through advice? Will you serve them through products and services? So how will you actually serve them? The third one is, how do you differentiate what you do? So make sure, how do you differentiate your message? Now, this one is the one that most people have a challenge with, because the first thing that comes to your head is, I don't know. Because I'm the same as everybody, and you're not, right? Because you're going into comparison. So you just stop comparing and go into, what are the things that you naturally do, your natural gifts and talents that you don't even think that you have, right? Like, it's like business ideas. I was on a call with a client the other day, and about 15 minutes before we were done a coaching session, something came up about her ideal client. I said, oh, well, then you could do this and 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 you could do this. And we built a plan for her in 10 minutes. And she paused and she said, where the hell does that come from? I'm like, my baby. And I said, I don't know. I have no clue. And so I was reminded of, I have a natural gift for building business. So what do you do that's just so natural, right? And you think it's like, well, doesn't everybody do that? Doesn't everybody go into like, that's a cool thing to do, and this is how you could, like, no. So your experiences, your life experiences is one of the things that will also be a differentiator. What life experiences do you have? So as Jill Lublin said, right, in my PR course, highly dysfunctional family, former bodybuilder, right, grew up in the hospitality industry, like all of those pieces of my life have influenced who I am and what I do. So you might be like the youngest child of 25 children, like that, and that would have an impact. Or the oldest of, or like, I don't know, things like, oh, I know, I was the oldest child until about 6 years ago, and then I found out my mom and dad had a baby, right? That influenced, right? And they had given her up for adoption. That had a major impact on all of our lives. And so how can I utilize that? And so it makes it different. Now, I'm not the only woman out there that has brothers and sisters that she's unaware of, or brothers and sisters that their parents had. It's quite common in the 60s, right, to have a baby and give it up for adoption, because there was so much guilt and shame around, being pregnant and not being married. So not the only one, but if I think about how that impacted me, right, how that impacted me is my whole entire life, I felt like there was something horribly wrong with me because I could feel my mom and dad's sadness every time they looked at me. Now, my mom and dad don't know that, right? But I felt the sadness and I thought they were sad about me. But the moment I found out I had a sister, I was like, that had nothing to do with me. They were sad because they didn't talk about my sister Colleen at all, ever, not even to themselves. They never acknowledged her after that. My mom and dad gave her up for adoption, and that was it. My mom was like, that's done. We never speak of it again. Right? So my whole entire life has been full of secrets. That has had an impact, right? And unknowingly, an empathic like daughter, a reflector, and someone who's been intuitive, let's say, or intuitive or psychic, whatever word, right? I don't see the future and stuff like that. So, and growing up in an alcoholic home, right? Now, my story is different than your story, but you have a story. And so your message will be different because now, there's a great, if you like to read, there's a great book called Blue Ocean Strategies. And the concept is that everyone's in the red ocean where the sharks are, and they're all hungry and they're like for the kill, right? And your blue ocean strategy is you pulling apart. And so some simple questions are, what about your industry do you not like that you wish was different, right? So that's one way to come up with a differentiating your message. Your story will make your message different. And what do you believe at your core to be true, but you don't talk about, right? So an example is, I started talking a couple of years ago about the way that marketing people are creating marketing totally sucks, because they want you to feel really shitty about who you are, but you'll feel really good after you buy their product. Right? And so like that's what I don't like about the industry. And so I talk about that. Right. The other thing I don't like about the industry is you got all these gurus, and yeah, I get that they're making 7 figures or 8 figures and they're saying this is the way. And I'm saying that's bullshit. There are like a million different ways. Your way is not the right way. And yes, I understand you made $1 million or 2 million or a trillion or a billion or whatever. And I'm so glad for you. And that $1 billion way might not be my way. And so I can use it as a model, I can use it as a guide, but you don't know any more than I do. Right. And all the people that have made that kind of money have like argued with me. Well, I obviously know more because I make more money than you. And I'm like, is that so that's the marker? Making more money means like you know more? I said, I don't think so. Maybe it means that you can apply things differently, or maybe my experience is different. Maybe I'm not at this time meant to, because everything happens for me and nothing happens to me. Right. So those pieces of it, right? So you, in your industry, you'll have those same things. What drives you crazy about what other people say? And you go, that's not true. It's like, you need to get into alignment to da, 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 da. And I'm like, you're in alignment all the time. You're never misaligned. But what are you aligning to? That's the question, right? You're always in alignment, right? And then my other one is, there's nothing wrong with you. You are perfect the way that you are. And I wasn't the first person, but I'm the first person that I know of to expand on that, which means, right, if you were meant to be in a different place, you would be. And every decision you make is the perfect decision, or you'd make a different decision. I mean, like, that to me is like, right, the no-brainer, the duh statement, as Mackenzie says, right? Mackenzie's saying is, you do you, right? And she's like, you do you. But allow me to do me. That's what she says to people. You should, they say to her, you should do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. And she says, how about you do you, and I'll do me. Right? So you have those things when you hear people in your industry talking, right? And you're like, that is such bullshit. So that's how you can differentiate your message. Okay, I spent lots of time on that. The next, what you need to decide is your strategies, like your business strategies, and how you want to get your message out there. Right. And there's lots of different ways. Like, you could use YouTube or other social media channels. You could do webinars, you could speak, you could do paid ad spots, which I wouldn't recommend anyone do right now until you've scaled your business enough. Right. You can do podcasts, you can write books, right? You can do Facebook Lives. I mean, that's social media, but there's really like, what kind of strategies do you want to utilize to get your message out? And there's no wrong way. It is, I think it's important though to understand the strategy you want to implement, right? Otherwise, if you're, how do I say this? Otherwise, there's no direction. And everyone needs a direction. And the direction that you feel that you should be taking is perfect, right? And it might even be networking. Like, I love networking. I love connecting, right? And so it simply might be to spend your days connecting with people and not trying to sell them anything, right? Like, I had this lady the other day on LinkedIn. She asked for, she sent, I don't even know if she even sent a connection, or she just sent me an email, a cold calling email. And I messaged her back and I said, I just want to share with you from my perspective as a sales trainer about cold calling and just wanting me to buy your product, and telling me what you think is the benefit that you have for my business without you even knowing what I do. Just because I have on there coach, you think that my biggest problem is, and I inserted that. And I said, I'm just going to suggest that the old way of cold calling and emailing is dying. And so unsolicited advice is that there's to think about what's a different way to get in touch with people. I said, it's kind of like if you've ever been in an online dating app and you both swipe right. And I said to her, you both swipe right, and then some guy sends you a dick pic. Just because I said I was interested in chatting, I do not need to see your penis, right? And she messaged me back, and she thanked me, and she said that was a very like a visual for her. And I said, true story. My first week of online dating, I swiped right to have a conversation and I get back this naked picture. And I said, dude, what the hell? I don't even know your last name. I don't even know if this is your real first name. And I said, why would you think that I wanted a picture of your penis? He's like, well, it's pretty. I'm like, good for you. Right? Like, I don't even know you. I don't need a picture of your penis. Right? But that to me is what cold emailing feels like. Swipe right, dick pic. And I think it's changed, right? And so for you, what feels good for you? How do you want to engage with people? And when I'm talking about engagement, I'm not talking about like sending dick pics. Don't send a dick pic. Or do. If that feels good to you, then send the dick pic. And that's what I'm saying, right? I can share my information with you. I can give you funny examples. But if you think, no, you know what? I love cold calling. It is like my most favorite thing to do, to cold message people, then you should do that. And it will be for some people. They'll be like, oh, I love it. I'm like, then that's exactly what you should do. If you love it, then you need to do it. My dad loves cold calling. Oh, my dad would not just send a random cold email like that, but my dad would like message someone and say, hey, I noticed you've done this and this and this. And I have a background in farming. I'll use that. And I'd love to sit down and talk about your farm. He used to sell advertising to farmers, right? And so he would, so I learned my cold calling methods from my dad, which is go have a conversation with somebody, right? We used to do that all the time. We would go out randomly and he would have conversations and then come back and my mom would say, so did you get his business card? And dad's like, of course. But he never went into it thinking I'm getting a business card. He has a genuine curiosity for people. And then when he found out that they had something in common, like my dad selling farm advertising for farms and they own a farm or a ranch or a whatever, then he would naturally say to them, oh, I'd love to connect with you, right? I work for Farm Life and I think and I like to know a little bit more about you. So he didn't hide where he worked, but see the difference between just the swipe right and or look, how will we have conversation? So a strategy is really, really important. And then the next piece of your business is a conversation needs to happen around conversion. And so I can try to sexy those words up, but really a sales conversation needs to happen. And a sales conversation doesn't have to feel gross or icky for everyone. It can be a call of curiosity. Okay. And what I wanted to add to this piece that just came to me is I had this awareness yesterday that I think that the women that I work with, right? So just like in general, the women that I want to work with, the future women, the women that I work with, the women of my past that I've worked with, have an aversion to follow up. And the aversion to follow up is because you think it's a sales call. And it's not a sales call. It's customer service. So I'm going to go into sales language. It is customer service. It is good service to follow up. Right? It is not code for sales. Right? And so it is okay to follow up. And it's okay if you get a no. But isn't a yes or a no better than a not knowing and wondering? Right? And so I will follow up and follow up and follow up and follow up and not always. There's times that I forgot to follow up and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was confused between sales and follow-up. Right. And I think it's important. I think it's important to follow up. Right. And so don't confuse the two. Follow-up isn't sales, follow-up is customer service, right? It's kind of like, waitressing, right? So Jen, I think you might appreciate this, right? So I'm a waitress and I come to the table and I take your order and then I deliver your food. What does a waitress, well, a good waitress comes back and asks you in a short period of time, not when you're done your meal, is everything okay? Well, it's the end of the meal, right? But comes if your first few bites to check to make sure everything's okay, and then comes back with more water or more coffee or more drinks or whatever. What is she doing? Right? She's following up, right? She's right, following customer service, following up, ensuring that your experience is a great experience. Right? So why would we not follow up with either clients that we have, right? Or clients that we want to have, right? Yeah, and she's asked, can I get you anything else? Right, Anne? And so how often are you confusing the two? Right? Get ahead of the I love that. Jen says get ahead of the problem before it's a problem. Right, Jen? So how often, right, are you not doing the follow-up? Right. I know. It was like this for me too, right? And it came because it was a gift because there's someone that I want to work with, right? And she's like, she needs to think about it. So I gave her a week and then followed up and didn't hear from her. And then a week later I followed up. And then 3 days later I followed up. And the next time I followed up, I said to her, I'm not stalking you. However, I was honest with her. I really want to work with you. And she's in overwhelm, and I know she's in overwhelm. And so what happens when we're in overwhelm? Nothing. Right. And so the other day, finally, she said she didn't want to work with me. And I said, cool. Right. That's fine. And then she posted something on Facebook, and I messaged her and said to her, how's that working for you? Because to me, it's the old way of doing business. And I just want, like, how's that working for you? And it was awesome because she said, it's working fine. And it's working with this. And I said, I'm so excited for you because it's an older way of doing marketing, but if it's working for you, then that's awesome. And then I asked her specific questions. How many appointments have you made from this post? How many people called you? What was your conversion? Was it new clients or old clients? And she's like, I have no clue. So although it was working, right, in her mind, it was working, she couldn't answer those questions. And I wasn't doing it to be facetious or to like, oh, here's what you're missing out on. It's that I want to work with her. And so, and I want her to have success. And so if I can help her have success, even though we're not working together, why would I not do that? Why would I not share what's in my brain right now? And so then she came back and she said, yeah, it is really working. I said, 75% conversion. That's really high. You're perfect. I said, do that until it doesn't work. And then you change it. But it's working, so don't change it. But she didn't know. So you see how we can serve. Who are you serving, right? And how will you serve them? All right, long call again today. Thanks so much. 2 extremely important messages. And I couldn't split them into 2 days for whatever reason. I wasn't meant to. So I was guided to just, right, do them both today. Thank you so much. Love you all. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Mwah.